This week on Center City Overtime, we introduce Center City Live, and these incredible people make a little bit of noise.
Let's go.
We talk about all things being scattered together. Make sure you like, subscribe. Let's get it.
Welcome to Center City Overtime, a weekly podcast where we take a little more time to dive into Sunday's message. And today, I'm really excited because you've probably already noticed, this is not Pastor John next to me. We are at Center City Overtime Live.
Let's go. Make some
Get
noise.
it.
That's right. Now, what I didn't tell them, what I didn't prep them for is we don't have a mic on the crowd today, but we do have a camera on you. So at any point, you might be in the crowd. So one time, just wave at the camera. It's right over here. Everybody wave at the camera. Yeah. All
There
right.
are some people so excited and some who, like, this just made the day go terribly.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. So this week I'm excited because, first of all, Overtime Live, super excited for the crew in the house, but also we get a chance to introduce the podcast family to a couple of people who, I mean, John's been on before, but Jabbar hasn't. So what we're going to do a little bit is take a moment and introduce our illustrious panel today. We'll start with my man, John. John, why don't you introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, you know, I think this is my first time, though. I think it is my
We did a
first time.
staff one in
Oh,
Ohio.
that's right.
Yeah. Very different. And like an old
Dom,
mansion.
Erase that from the cut.
It was a really memorable experience for you.
I planted it right back there. Jonathan Gonzalez, man.
So, John, what do you do
Yeah.
here at Center City?
So I help oversee the experience team, the tech crew, visual, lights, cameras, all that good stuff. Got a cool team we get to work with, so it makes it fun and easy, man.
You also been like incredibly involved in anything men's related.
Yeah, it's funny because I that was never really my niche. Like I always kind of stayed away from men's group. I don't know why growing up, but it kind of just was natural here, and the guys are mad cool. We all get along well. It's not forced, and it's been kind of incredible just to see what God has been doing the past couple of years. So
Now you're repping some new merch too.
yes, Fight Camp. We got Fight Camp this year, number 2, round 2, some might say. And if you ain't signed up, you might say you missed out on something pretty epic this year. No guilt trips or anything, but I think it's gonna go down in the books as being a historical one, man.
And limited space.
Yeah, limited. We might have maybe single digits right now. Like we definitely exceeded our numbers that last year, and there is a small amount of room. So hopefully, if you guys can make it out, try to sign up. We still got a little bit of space.
So when we start talking about Overtime Live and kind of being able to introduce more people to the pod, one of those people like instantly came in my head was Jabbar. I didn't know you were going to be the first person or part of the first week.
No pressure.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the people real quick?
Jabbar Jameson, member of Center City for about COVID years, always messes me up. So 5 years, maybe 6. And husband, father of 3, and lover of the Lord.
Amen. Man.
Hey, man, let me hold on. I'm a husband too.
We see what your priorities are.
That's good. Look at that.
Jabbar, tell the people a little bit about what you do here at Center City.
First of all, I come and I attend, and making sure I'm here regularly.
Yes.
To be
Which
part of the
with
fellowship.
kids is a challenge.
It is. And we come to the early service too, 9 o'clock. So yes. But also I'm a steward and help with the budgetary items for the church, making sure that the outlook looks good and we can just be a sounding board for John and the rest of the team.
Yeah, man, it's such a blessing to have you on the team. And we're excited to have you. Nan's in the house, his wife somewhere. She's in the crowd somewhere.
There she is.
Hi, Miss Nan. Hi, Miss Nan.
So, Jabbar, I got a quick question. So, since you come to 9 o'clock, you got a couple of, 3 kids right now, you're holding down. So, you're basically saying there's no excuse. If you can do it, anyone can.
Anybody can. I mean, it is tough, though.
Yeah.
We live in Indian Trail. We're one of those far outlying people on Indian Trail, but you make room for what you make room for.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this week we began a series which I'm really excited about called Scattered Together. And Jabbar talked a little bit about you make room for what's important. And one of the things that's kind of cultural to us here at Center City, we say it all the time. We actually have it on our wall really big, you belong. So as a church, we really do focus on trying to figure out how to connect people to places where they feel together. You did a phenomenal job, Pastor Ashley, starting this series off. Acts chapter 8 is really kind of where you started the conversation. And you talked about the power of a mustard seed. Mm-hmm. So let's start there, because I think that's critical. Can you, in the way that you do, briefly wrap up what the idea of that mustard seed that we find in Scripture?
Mustard is a weed, like it's a lot of other things, but one of the main things that people in Jesus's time would have thought when he said the kingdom of God is like mustard is that mustard is that plant that's like kudzu that gets everywhere. Like you plant a little of it and before you know it, a whole road will be covered in these beautiful yellow flowers of this mustard plant. And so when he talks about the kingdom of heaven being like mustard, it basically means that the followers of Jesus can know that wherever we go, that kingdom's going to grow and there's nothing that can really stop it. Yeah, mustard's a weed. That's my brief answer.
I loved it. So in 2024, when we consider the idea of scattered, I think some people would see that as a negative, but you really did kind of communicate that as a positive. What is it about being scattered as a church collectively? Like, how does God use that for his glory?
Well, I mean, if we're all in one place, it's great. We enjoy it. But there are a lot of people that we're not reaching. And so much of what it means to be part of the kingdom of God is that we say it about Center City, but it's true about the whole kingdom. We are always open. We're never full. There are always people who need to hear about the goodness of a God who loves them, who created them in his image. Like there's a family they can belong to. So if we're all in one place, that's just people that we can't reach. But if we're scattered, which is happening anyway, naturally, that just means there are a lot more people that can be invited in.
Love that. I absolutely love that. I want to talk a little bit about what this means practically, because you also talked about the power of pods, how when we're scattered, like mustard seeds come in these pods and the power of that and how we're scattered together. For a lot of people, like within the context of your faith journey, Jabbar, who are some of those people that you feel like you've kind of been scattered with, but together?
Well, I started at, I get this confused, Multiply, which was Concord First Assembly at first. And when you made the transition, I made the transition here. And one of the things that we had at Concord First Assembly, I'm going to call it Concord because that's what it was when I was there.
Do you think?
Well,
And it was a strong men's group. And Ray led that men's group. And when I transitioned down here, I asked Ray for about a year to start the men's group back up. It was that important. And I don't know if it was me continually asking him and getting on his nerves or him just saying, okay, God's telling me it's time. But he did start it. And so just that connection that Ray brought from Concord First Assembly to here with the men's group, I mean, it's so impactful.
Yeah.
And there's been a good group of us that came from Concord First Assembly down here, and we still keep in touch and we still do life and check in on one another. A couple of my good friends, Greg, Alan, Mike, who was a small group leader too. He's not here, but I mean, just that core of people that we can still get together and feel off one another is always important.
Now, John, I know just from experience and being around you that you are a big group guy. Like you got your people, whether it's family or friends that you've kind of not just in this season, but people that have been with you since you were like 16, 17 years old. Mm-hmm. What do you think the secret is to staying connected like that?
Intentionality. I like you got to be intentional about it. There's a lot of people that I'm really close to. Not a lot. There's a handful of people that I'm really close to. Some of them I just know I'm close to them. Others of them, I drifted apart and I realized I got to be intentional because what we had is worth keeping. And so I had to be intentional about kind of bringing that back into the forefront. So for me, it just had to be about intentionality. It wasn't more difficult than that. I just had to make the effort. Not get upset if they didn't reach out to me and it's been a minute. if I didn't reach out to them, I didn't have an excuse either, because we do get busy. I don't like hearing that as an excuse. But when I realized I haven't reached out to you in a minute, oh, it's legitimate now. I'm busy. So it's just being intentional, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that intentionality. And actually, we just got a incredible question from one of our people, Miss Jemima. Hey, flash the camera on Miss Jemima real quick. Wave your hands, Miss Jemima. Where you at? I know you there. You got boom, boom, first row. You are officially the holder of the first question ever to Overtime Live. So I'm gonna put this in your lap, Pastor Ashley, because I do think this is important, and we like really getting into some of the practicals. And she asked, how do you know when God is calling you to be scattered with another pod? So I'm just going to try to translate that to the best of my ability. For so many of us, there are times and seasons where I think everybody can attest, the pod changes. So like, how do you do that, and how do you know when God's kind of calling you to that shifting?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of answer that in two ways, because I first want to say, like, there is something to lifelong friendships that is beautiful. That has not really been my story. Like, for those of you who know a little bit about me, in the span of my 20s, I lived in 3 different countries on 3 different continents, and every time I moved, I went not knowing anyone when I moved. And so I had to learn how to quickly find like-minded people and trust them earlier than it came naturally. So some of that, like being scattered, comes with figuring out, doing that hard work of being vulnerable to a point. Like, you don't need to walk around to every stranger that you ever meet who walks out of a church building and be like, here's everything that I've struggled with in my whole life. Will you pray for me? But just to be willing to do that. And so I think then knowing that, we can have a peace that sometimes you just feel the wind of the Spirit creating a new season. Sometimes that's natural because you're transitioning, you're moving actual like cities or even neighborhoods. You're moving into a different life stage. You're getting married. You're having children. But sometimes I think we just sense this unsettledness in our spirit. And that's the time that I would say, just pray, ask the Holy Spirit if that's what he's doing, because God is going to be a good Father and communicate and answer those prayers. But don't be afraid of that. I think so often we're afraid of that new season, and he's going to have that pod for you on the other side of it, but it might be a little rocky at first, and definitely take the risk of trusting people as you do that. Now,
just by a show of hands real quick, how many people are, I can make friends with the wall? Like, friends are not hard. Okay. Put your hands down. How many people would say, I have a little bit of an issue making friends and connections like that? Okay. Put your hands down. How many people were people who could make friends at one point, but then got burnt, and now it's a little tough to make friends? Okay. So what do you say to the person who's reluctant? Because that's the truth of how we live, right? Like, some of you, like me, there's not a stranger I've ever met, high five the random person in Walmart because they have a Lakers jersey on and the Lakers are playing that night. And I've had the weirdest conversations about that stuff just because that's the type of guy I am. But when it comes to real lasting, like deeper relationships, people that I'm really to do life with and go to war beside, there's a real hesitation in us sometimes. So what do you say to that person that may be struggling and reluctant to step into those pods and develop those tight-knit relationships?
Yeah. I think, first of all, it's hard. Like, don't hear that it's easy or that like it should be easy. It's okay for that to be a struggle. But there is so much more life than just living alone. Like, it's worth taking the risk, but also you can have different levels of closeness with people. Like, I immediately thought of Jesus, who had like all of these followers who went around with him, ones that traveled with him alongside the 12 disciples, but were still a little bit on the outskirts. Then he had the 12 disciples who were really close to him, but then he had just 3 that were like his real inner circle that he would keep with him. So it's not like your pod has to be everyone at that super close level. It's okay for those to be a couple people and to have like different levels of closeness with people. We don't have to tell everyone everything and just like, I don't know.
So Jabbar is the elder statesman of the board right now of those sitting on the couch here, is the old guy.
Am I?
We invited you on to make fun of you.
You are today.
It's the beer. It's the beer.
It's got to be
great.
I like it though.
Thank you.
My question to you is, so much of what I've learned about the people in the pod, those people who are close to us, what are you looking for when you're trying to develop deep relationships in people? Like, let's talk to use Ashley's metaphor, which I think is beautiful. Like those three. Let's talk about those three. Those that are really close. Those you're doing life with. What are you looking for?
One, it just has to be a natural connection. It's not forced. It's not work. You don't have to work hard towards it. That inner core is natural, and there's a likeness to be had. There's similarities. There's experiences, and there's just a good vibe.
Yeah.
And so you feel comfortable around being around that person or those people. And once you have that, you start to develop and get more comfortable in iterations of being around them and having deeper discussions. One of my best friends started at when I was getting my MBA at UNC Charlotte. And it didn't start off that way, but we naturally attracted to one another. Then it was video games, then it was studying, and then it was just deep conversations. And then he was the best man in our wedding. And so it wasn't forced, though. It was a natural come to. I was busy. I had a job, full-time job. He had a full-time job, both single, and trying to do the MBA at the same time concurrently. And now we're just, again, even though we're separated, he's in Georgia, I'm here, we're still that closeness. And so I always say, don't force it. If it's meant to be, you don't have to force any type of relationship that's meaningful. And from there, allow it to develop organically.
That's amazing. John, what about you? What do you look for in those type of people?
And this is something I think I realized about myself, like within the past couple of years, I was able to put a name on it. Authenticity. Like, I know we always say it, but I look into your words. So if you say a certain word to me and you communicate something, I'm taking that word to the bank. If I see, you're telling me one thing, but I realize he's just blowing smoke, he's trying to make me feel better. Like, those are the type of friendships that they're going to be in the masses number. They probably won't even make my 12. But if I can really know through thick and thin, you're going to tell me what's true. Not the rude kind. I just got to tell you as it is, like, not that. I mean, just genuine, real authenticity. Those are the ones I'm like, yeah, those are lifelong friendships. Yeah. Not those other ones that are just bold to say anything. That's when you get hit. Just joking. I've never gotten in a fight, by the way. Never.
Says this the guy who's 6'2", 200 pounds. I ain't never been in a fight. Punk.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Grew up fighting.
We had to.
That's it.
We had to, right?
I got to fight somebody, and I'm the smallest guy in the room. So even if I didn't do it, I got the one. Anyway, that's me being authentic, John.
I appreciate that.
I'm a loyalty guy, and I'm a like, for me, if. And I know this is me. I know a lot of people like texting and all of my Gen Z, Y, Alpha, whatever the number is, letter is now. It's funny because my kids, like, they're finding their social connection. I was talking about this the other day. My sister Lisa used to pick up the telephone, and the cable between the phone and her room was super long. You know what I'm talking about? So like, we used to trip on it, and we knew it was in her room because she shut the door with the cable in it. My boys now are on Fortnite lobbies talking to their friends from school. Like, that's their form of communication. I am a verbal processor. So the people who are closest to me know that when I call, you pick up the phone. I mean, again, barring there's an emergency or you can call me later, but so to me, that's what I just need. Like, the people who are close to me know when your boy John calls, it's because I need to verbally process something. It might have nothing to do with you, but we're going to process. And vice versa. Like, they got to know that. So to me, that's a big part of it, is that loyalty of time. Because to your point, you said earlier, Jabbar, like, you make time for the things that are important. And if we're going to be like that, and we're going to do life together, and we're going to war together, and even recently, just walking through some tough seasons with some friends of mine, they just know, like, when they call, they're gonna get an answer on the other line, and if they need to, I'm gonna jump on a plane and be where they need to be, and vice versa. Like, we're gonna do that. So that's a big thing to me.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, you can't be that to all people. Like, that's just not fair. Let's be honest. Like, that's not an unfair expectation. So to Ashley's point earlier, I do think there is this these levels of relationship that, by the way, I don't have a running list that says this person's close 3, but last week they said something crazy, so I called them and said, "Hey, you're close to being 4." Like that doesn't.
I did make a list once.
Did you? How am I not surprised by that?
Yeah. I
but-
don't have one now.
I will say that there are some important relationships to have. There are mentor relationships. Relationships that the only thing I can offer is like whatever services I can provide. Like, hey man, I can come clean your house for you if you want, but I just need 20 minutes of your time to teach me this thing that I don't know. So that mentor relationship's important. And then the mentee relationship, specifically as you become an older statesman, as Jabbar, and myself. I'll put
You're
myself
gonna
in
make
that
people
equation.
afraid to
Deacon.
come on this panel.
He called me short before during service, so this is a
But I
tone.
thought we were there together. Man, I just dropped to 8 in Jabbar's list. But I also think mentee relationships are critical. I know they feed me, man. Like being able to sit down with a 20-year-old over a cup of coffee and tell them how they're making really bad decisions with their life does something. No, I'm just kidding. But being able to kind of introduce them, like my favorite thing specifically in that relationship is to tell them to breathe, because when you're that age, everything is these monsters. So I think if you can balance those relationships, if you have a good cluster of those, I think you're healthy. But all of this like revolves around our context of groups, right? Like, so as a church, we do everything we can to create these spaces where people can step into those relationships. So can you talk a little bit about how groups work to help connect people and scatter them together as well?
Yeah, we have like a really open market is actually kind of what we call a group system here, so that people can decide that they want to do groups around an activity. Like if there's something you like to do, like run on Saturday mornings, which is actually I went one time. But like then you can gather with other people who enjoy doing that. In past seasons, we've had groups who are doing like knitting and fiber arts, and groups that are hiking, and just like all sorts of things that you can gather around something that you like. But then we also have groups that are meeting in homes and eating together, and they're a little bit more kind of based on where you live and what's close to your house. And then there are groups that want to study the same thing. Like we've got a group that I'm so excited about this season. Shout out to Jackie. It's called Good Boundaries and Goodbyes.
Let's go.
And there's like people who really want to work on how to set healthy boundaries. And so it's around this kind of shared desire to learn. And basically all of them are there so that you can find people to go through life with, because here's what's going to happen. Like whichever group you go to, you're going to learn something, you're going to get to know people, but at some point in the next few months, at least someone in that group is going to have something big come up in their life. And then that's when that real like being a pod, life together thing happens, because you're going to call your group leaders, you're going to call the people in your groups. I kind of joke that one of our groups they've had a lot of babies recently, maybe because it's the moms group, but like they're doing meal trains all the time. But that's because they're coming around. It's their people. It's not like a name on a list. It's someone that you know and that you love. And so it's kind of finding whatever it is that'll be that magnet to attract you. But it's really about the life that happens in that context.
Yeah, I love our group context because, again, if you're a runner, you can join people who run, or at Jabbar, let's doing a financial one. So like even that's a teaching opportunity. But the truth is, when crisis happens, during crisis is the worst time to look for people. Mm-hmm. So you want to look for people before the crisis. And I'm just going to tell you, and I maybe have not said this, and maybe should say it more. I am so proud of this church community. Recently, we have had several crises, for lack of a better term, that have come across our table through prayer requests. And these are life-altering moments. And what we're finding is, in many cases, for those who are deeply connected, before Ashley can get on the phone with somebody, or I can get on, or John gets on the phone with somebody, meal trains have been developed. People are getting phone calls from their group members. They're taking care of their kids while they're getting hospital visits. I'm finding more and more that connectivity is special to this church. And so much of that is because of your heart to say, no, I don't know who you are, but the minute you walk through the door, you're my people and you belong. And so much of that is because of the effort that you've put in over the last several seasons in groups and making that a big part of putting that in front of us constantly. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's really easy with this group of people.
Absolutely.
We have a very loving church.
So this is the point where you ask me where we're going.
Hey, where are we headed
I
in
can't
our Scattered
wait.
Together series?
That's right. So one of the things about being scattered, you did a phenomenal job communicating being scattered this week. This Sunday, I get a chance of that talking about this miraculous thing that, quite honestly, the more research I do, the more I'm finding that this is unique to the church. It's unique to us as the children of God. We are able to come together. We find each other. And then there are some things, which I'm really excited to kind of break through. There's some things about who we are and what we do that keeps us together. So yes, we're scattered, but the Church of Ephesus started when people were scattered to Ephesus. And in a matter of just a short season, you saw hundreds upon thousands of people because of the multiplication and coming together of the church community. I think it's special to who we are as the children of God. I think it's supernatural, and I can't wait to dive into that a little bit more Sunday. Now, I say all that, and normally we kind of get ready to wrap up, but because of the fact that nobody else has asked me any questions, I'm looking on my list, and it doesn't seem like anybody else asked any other questions. We're going to do something that I don't even have the technology to do right now, but does anybody have any questions from Sunday or any of the conversations? Like, Pastor John, I'd like to know more about that. It's okay if not, just asking, giving you the space. Awesome. Well, we must have done a great job explaining that all.
I don't know if this is for the YouTube or if this is just for the room, but find your people, even if it's not a group. If you look through and there's not a group on there that speaks to you, come find me. And it's, if you're already in crisis, still find your people. Like, there's nothing that's like, oh, you missed it. But life is just better when you have people to carry your burdens with you, and when you have that sense of purpose of helping other people carry their burdens. Because sometimes we also, like, we can need so much help, but when you're in community, you're receiving it and giving it at the same time, and there's purpose and value in that. So if you're an introvert, I'm an introvert, no one ever believes it, but it can be hard to do that, but be uncomfortable for a little bit because it's worth it. It's worth it. And like I said, if you look through that list and you're like, none of this looks like what I need, come find me and we'll build something. Like, just find your people.
I will also encourage you, whether you're watching online or you're in the room, also, remember, you're not married to any of these groups either. If you did a group last year and it went well, but maybe you're looking for something new, like, no one's going to be offended if you try something new. Like, try something new. And you'll be amazed that there'll be some relationships that you found in that first group that will carry on and build, and then you'll meet a whole new group of people and get a chance to do it again. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, and you can also try out. We have a certain couple that I think one or both of them sign up for every single group. They're not going to go to every single group, but they might try out a couple of them, and that's okay too. It's like drop ad period, you know? So sometimes we think we're going to hurt someone's feelings if it's not the right fit, but every single group leader here just wants to see people in a place where they can belong and grow. And if that's not my group in this season, that's totally fine. I just want you to find your place.
Amen.
So, yeah.
All right. Well,
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yes. Oh, let me check. We got one more question. Let me see. Oh, also from Jemima. I love that. Can you talk more about one-on-one discipleship and the value in that? And what does searching for that look like? That is such a great question. We just need to have Jemima on the couch next week. Yeah, people are snapping. Like, oh, I've never got snapped at. That's incredible. So one-on-one discipleship is challenging. So I'll just speak from experience, and then I'll open it up to you guys. There are those who discipled me and didn't even know they were doing it. Because the best discipleship happens when you're a good disciple. Right? You could have the best discipler, but if you're not a good disciple, if you're not committed to that process, it's challenging. It is. And really, like everything else, you got to find the right fit. But to Jabbar's point, some of that is organic too, is finding the right person, having the right conversations, making sure you're putting yourself in that place. A lot of my discipleship was a matter of shadowing. Like, you know, and it kind of not shadowed my dad when I was younger. You know, you play in your dad's shadow. He's fixing stuff. You learn how to fix stuff like your dad, although I didn't pick too much of that up, some of it. But I tell you, even when I started preaching, I sounded like my dad. And then I sounded a little like Billy Cole. And then I sounded a little bit like Max Sherry, because these are the guys who were discipling me in that process, even though that technically we never sat down and said, hey, you can disciple me this week? So I do think that the key to good discipleship, specifically one-on-one discipleship, is first being a good disciple. Doing what's necessary to find those places where you can find the people you can sit under. And for me, just a little side note to my people who are maybe younger and looking for that in their personal walk and development, I always tried to bring value to my discipleship relationship. So many times people are like, oh, I'm in discipleship, so I'm just going to sit there and he's going to feed. I'm trying my hardest. And sometimes that was, I'm going to show up on a Saturday and clean your pools, the leaves in your pool. I'm going to, show up 20 minutes early to church and help set up chairs because I know that you need help doing that. And in the process, that's going to put me in proximity and I'm going to learn. So that's just a couple practicals. What about you guys? What is one-on-one disciple? What did it look like for you? What has it looked like as you've participated in others?
You have something you was going to say?
I can go. It looks like you're deferring.
I love it.
I got you.
Deferring to the elders.
You really need to make the relationship known, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have an interaction, but to make it meaningful, let the person know what you're looking for so they can respond accordingly. It's very hard and this might be the male aspect of me, but for us to pick up and interpret what the need is. But when it's laid out before you, now we can understand what to pray for and really be there for that particular person. Without that, it's just more casual. And again, when I hear discipleship, I hear structure. I hear that there's a need to grow for some reason, through some season or through some circumstance. And so knowing that, now we can kind of tailor the relationship to that. And because of that, it's more intentional. And the other person doesn't take for granted, and the expectation is not met from you who is looking for discipleship, that this person is really fulfilling. Well, I didn't know that was my role or what you were looking for. How could I be that to you? So it's just that communication and being honest, so we can actually form that type of relationship to make sure that, again, it's impactful and there's a responsibility that's actually spoken to, that now I can actually nurture, or that person can nurture the relationship accordingly.
That's good.
That's good.
What about you, John?
So I like doing it. I like doing group settings and one-on-one. I'm a lot like Jabbar, where structure is key to me. I think it'll always be organic, but if you think about every aspect, any career, there is strategy, structure. There's a game plan. You want to be a doctor, this is what it looks like. This is how they act. This is what they do from morning to night and so forth. I think sometimes we get way more freestyle when it comes to the faith. So I like to try to paint a picture of what a disciple looks like, how they act, how they conduct themselves. And then you find your place within that, because the reality is there's only so many things we're going to produce as his followers, and we should all be producing the same things. When I say that, I don't mean we're all going to have the same type of fruit, but we should all be producing love throughout our lives. That's a non-negotiable. So patience, kindness shouldn't be something one guy does over the other one. It's like, no, that's an attribute of what a Christ follower should be producing. If you're not producing that, let's identify why. Because more likely than not, there's certain things you're letting in that's causing you not to be sensitive to the Spirit, or causing you to be too free in your ways where you think that's religious. And you've missed the mark. That's not religious. That's you following the love of your life, and that's what pleases him. So I'm all about structure, but I'm all about making it happen anywhere and just keeping it very natural at the same time.
All right, I would ask you the same question, Ashley, but we are running out of time. And Joey promised to let the kids into the room as soon as it was up. So we did get one more
Promised or
question.
threatened?
Yeah. We did get one more question, and I think it's a good question. If you're someone looking for a new community as you walk out of or through crisis, how do you balance putting intentionality into building those relationships? So when walking through or out of crisis for a lot of people, relationships are super, super tough. You're afraid of being too vulnerable. You're afraid like you don't have the bandwidth sometime even emotionally. What would you say to that person sitting maybe in the room or watching online?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I probably will give it some thought and end up coming back next week too. But the first thing that comes to mind is have grace with yourself. Because when you're in crisis, your capacity is not the same as what it's always been, both of your time, but even like your ability to mentally focus. I know when I'm in seasons of crisis, sometimes I'm like, I just wish I felt like myself because I can't remember things that I normally remember easily, and I'm forgetting people's names, and there's just a lot going on. So have grace with yourself and just try to take advantage of the opportunities God does give you in those moments. Pray for them, like start by asking God for them. And you just never know who's going to come along. That, to Jabbar's point earlier, like it is just easy. Like you do have that easy connection, and then just lean into those opportunities, but don't beat yourself up if it's hard to create them as much as you wish that you could. Because it does take time. Like as much as I'm like, quickly tell people, be vulnerable, there is a natural time and progression in building relationships and building community. And so take advantage of the opportunities when they come, and don't be too hard on yourself when they don't come as frequently as you wish.
The only thing I would add is just be super intentional. Like if you're walking through crisis and walking through a lot of emotional, you probably don't want to sign up for the group that's doing fiber art on Thursdays.
Yeah.
I it's kind of half jokingly, but to some degree, if what you're looking for is that, specifically within the scope, now I'm being really practical, within the scope of our community, there are things like the boundaries class. There are things like freedom that are going to be a little more specific to helping you navigate through crisis. So don't be afraid of stepping into those in those settings, because there's almost an expectation that some of that's going to be there, and we're going to be able to navigate that with people. But I just want to also remind you, a ploy of the enemy in seasons of crisis is isolation. Mm-hmm. So be cautious. To Ashley's point, make sure that you are incredibly gracious with yourself, but be cautious, because that voice that's telling you to be alone is not the voice of your Father. That is the lie of the enemy. And he's looking to isolate you in this season of weakness.
Yeah, that's good.
We got to wrap this thing up, Ash.
Yep.
You want to wrap it up? You always do.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's like I've never done this before.
I'm sitting here trying to cue you.
Well, I'm not the moderator this week. Yeah, I preached on Sunday.
You did.
Yeah.
Did a great job.
I didn't know. Snaps and claps, guys. We will be right back here on Sunday at 9 and 11, streaming at 11 to finish our Scattered Together series. You can go to centercity.church/groups to find a group, and come back next Wednesday night and be part of Center City Overtime Live. We'll see you then.
Woo. Yeah.